Helping others make the struggle disappear. Gold medal mindset session with Miss Codie Sanchez, already in progress. Enjoy.
I really think that we make life so much harder than it ever needs to be.
This is the Gold Medal Mindset, where we bring you all things winning in business, sport, and life. I'm Dr. Jason Richardson, pro BMX world champion and Pan Am Games gold medalist. Now I'm a professional speaker, author, and winning mindset coach. Thanks for joining in. Get ready to mine for gold as we challenge your perception to change your results.
I can understand if you are in some of the third world countries that I'm in when I do my investment business that yes, the struggle can certainly be real. But if you are in the U.S., in most circumstances, like there's not a lot of excuses. You know, there's public libraries with Wi-Fi. There are programs in every sense of the word. There's, huge amounts of grant money. I think most people that are, reading or watching us on Instagram or Facebook, like they don't have an excuse to not go out and get after what they want. So that's kind of my point. Like just like pretend, let's play pretend for a moment that it is possible and think about what if it was easy? How would you do it? And so I'm really working now on how to get that message across in a way that's a little bit of a smack to wake them up, but simultaneously a little bit of empathy because it's scary kind of going after what you want, I think.
Hey, welcome to the Gold Medal Mindset. Super excited to have some estrogen and some strong estrogen on the Gold Medal Mindset with is it Mrs., but it's Codie Sanchez Baker. I know that, and I know the struggle is not real, is it?
Nope, it's not. Thanks for having me, Jason. I'm thrilled to be here.
No problem. I even forgot what I was about to say because we were just immersed in our conversation, and I forgot to do the intro. What was I saying?
Well, you were talking to me about the struggle, and we were talking about how to frame it and have people think outside the box, that it doesn't have to be as hard as maybe the media and our moms and dads and parents and teachers all tell us.
That's right. And you were talking about how there's a fear or people are scared to go after what they want. Yeah, I think that's where we left off. My experience is I think people are scared to get what they want. And they find some kind of power in the struggle. So because I'm struggling, because it's so hard and I'm doing it anyway, but because of that, it gives me this great sense of importance. It gives me this great sense of I'm trying everything, air quote, and it's just not working. And not to be pessimistic, but I think to some degree, we humans have learned, I'm going to say, not only learned, what's the word, have become kind of habituated to some form of struggle or some form of strife.
I think that there is sort of a global race towards martyrdom and victimhood. So, yes, I think it's very easy for all of us. How much easier is this conversation to have? To say, well, I wasn't given this, or I didn't have that, or if I only had this chance, or if somebody had told me this, then I could be, then I could have, and then I could do this. Then it's not our fault. We're just a victim of our circumstance. As opposed to this conversation, which is, I am powerful enough, strong enough, smart enough to go out and get what I want. And ultimately, if I don't have it, I am the only person that can change my life. There's two ways to look at that. You could say, wow, that's powerful. Like, I have the opportunity to go and get what I want and get after it, like little Codie. That's cool. I'm excited by that. Or you could say, that's really scary. It's not somebody else's fault that I don't have it. It's mine. So I think, I kind of talk a lot about all of us having this little clock inside of us, right? And as you start being on podcasts like yours and listening to all the motivational speaking you do, Jason, and being around people like some of our mutual friends and seeing the abundance and learning about opportunity and being around people who are thinking big, your clock starts to tick a little bit faster and a little bit faster. And where it used to have a little bit of a lag due to just our default settings and society and some of the setbacks, now it's going a little bit quicker. But I think the face of your clock can kind of be reflective on other people, and they can look at it and it makes them take pause because it turns into a little bit of a mirror. And if they see Jason, who they know is smart and capable and intelligent, but they also know, like, hey, Jason and I went to the same high school, or we went to the same college. He's really not that much smarter than I am. Like, what is the difference?
Hey, what do you mean by that?
I think the difference is always, I'm no genius. I don't have a high IQ, and I've achieved some pretty cool things, I think, just because I was like, you know what? Why not? I'm going to go try it.
I always say, specifically to athletes, I remember when I first turned pro, when I was racing bikes, an article came out, and it was one of those deals where they asked other pros about other pros, and it came out that I was the most overrated pro.
Wow.
And at first I was offended, and then I was like, you know what? That's awesome. Because, which turns into what I say to my clients now, is I made a career out of beating people better than me.
It's huge.
It's huge because you don't, like you said, Jason might not be that smart. And I'm not, by the way. And you might not be, you might not know everything, or you might not have the talent you'd hope you have. But the beauty is, sometimes it doesn't matter. It's just a matter of being willing to go out there and get it, and then being willing to execute on a plan, or learn to execute on a plan.
Yeah, and I think to try, some of it's just a game of reps. The first business I built was a financial business in Latin America. My last name is Sanchez, right? My father's from Spain. But actually, growing up, I really spoke English mostly. So I spoke Spanish, but it was like a little bit embarrassing. And then you take that and you're sitting in front of, the head of the Bank of Chile, or the head of, the biggest Mexican pension with $60 billion. And I'm trying to sound intelligent at 24 or whatever in Spanish. And was I the smartest person in the room? Absolutely not. I was probably always the least intelligent, and my Spanish was certainly the worst. But I just kept going. I just would call on them again, and I'd give them a different idea, and I would push, and I would push, and I would push. And eventually, the reps turned into me getting kind of decent at it. And the fact that I wouldn't give up and kept trying, I think, is what separated me from people who are very intelligent, let's say, or very traditionally, have perfect Spanish, but didn't show up every day and grind.
I agree wholeheartedly, which got me thinking after you said 60 billion and you're in front of these bankers. We haven't told the good people who are listening to this what it is you do. Well, I think they're finding out very quickly what it is you're about, but we haven't told them what it is you do. So I want you to get on your soapbox right now and pitch it.
I like it. Well, I was thinking about this. I like that, focusing on what you're about instead of what you do. But, if anything, I think I'm a slave to my curiosity. So my little inner curious cat has driven me to explore a couple different things. I suppose I'm an entrepreneur, a speaker, and an investor, but I started out heading a large investment business in Latin America, where we sold investments to big sovereign wealth funds, pensions, et cetera, across Latin America and Europe. And I had success there. We built a really profitable big business that I still head. And I kind of thought after that, these principles seem to work in a corporate, competitive, traditional company, like a finance company is. Kind of thought, man, could I apply these to a startup that was B2C, so selling to people like you and me, instead of B2B, selling to other businesses. Mm-hmm. So I launched a startup that was in something totally different from finance, which was fashion. It's called Threads Refined. We wanted to see if the principles applied and they could make it profitable. And they were. So we ran that business for 18 months. It was a marketplace of personal stylists. I just sold that business. And what I realized is that I just get lost when I get the opportunity to speak to humans who are trying to build their business or their career or their life in a way that's filled with passion, purpose, and profitability. So now that's what I do at CodieSanchez.com. I go around and talk to people about how to build businesses, and do that on my podcast, which I want to have you on, Jason, and do that in a way where hopefully I'm giving them really actionable advice. They can actually go and create something profitable and purpose-filled.
I like that. The 3 Ps, passion, purpose, and profitability.
You got it.
There's the 4 Ps in marketing, but I think I prefer your 3 Ps versus the 4 Ps.
Yeah, we just make it a little shorter and sweeter.
And an interesting side note, too, because there's this weird thing about money. I always say if you can get people talking about money and food, and then maybe religion and politics, but I'll put that on the side. But money and food, if you can get people talking about money and food, you learn their hangups really quickly, belief
Ooh,
systems really
interesting.
quickly, their values really quickly. And it's my theory, okay? This is no science. This is my theory based on just my limited work with a lot of people, is that if you can get people over their food and money hangups, then most everything they want or think they want will actually come to fruition. And they'll not only find their purpose, but they'll live with more fulfillment in their life. That said, with your 3 Ps, passion, that's right, passion, purpose, profits.
Yep.
A lot of people do the passion and they're kind of wonky on the on the purpose, and then the profits are I think there's like a lot of guilt around it because it might be easy or because it might be fun or it might be enjoyable. And I think a lot of people have this rule. I think you even said it earlier about your parents saying, how hard it has to be or just kind of what you hear about work versus what you actually do. But you just get this thing in your head, you as in a human gets this thing in your head where we equate work or making money with drudgery, factories, doom and gloom versus, hey man, I'm having fun and I happen to be getting paid well for this.
Yeah, I think there is actually a little bit of an epidemic across the US and maybe the globe to where we think that having money or having wealth or creating wealth is a negative thing.
Yes.
And to me, the problem with that is twofold. Anything that you have a negative connotation to, I believe, you will then you will not attract, you will deflect. And so if you have a negative mentality towards money and you think that it is not a good thing, do you think you're going to bring much of that into your life? Probably not.
Probably not.
And right. And, I started in this business. I was a journalist along the border and along the U.S.-Mexico border and writing stories about, human trafficking and human strife and actually real struggle. Right.
Yeah.
And I wrote a couple stories. They won some awards. We were all excited. But what I realized was nothing happened. We wrote these stories that were impactful and we were personally rewarded for it. But did the people that we write the stories about, did their lives change? And they didn't. And it got me thinking, how do things change? How do systems change in our personal lives and how do they change for society? And the way that I think they change is by having people who care about it in power positions. And the way you get to power positions is through money, I believe. I don't think there is freedom without financial freedom, period. So you can be self-actualized and like a wandering homeless street artist, but you cannot make a very big impact on society, I don't believe, unless you have financial freedom in order to attain positions of power where you can have real impact. And it's kind of non-PC to say that, but if we let other people have positions of power in finance, politics, in corporations that come along with money, which we perceive as dirty or whatever, how are we ever going to change society, or how are we ever going to make it better for ourselves and the people around us? I don't know.
It's interesting because, again, my dad, he kills. I'm going to have my dad on the show one time. I think I'm just going to call him and just record without him knowing. But I remember my cousin was just starting out in his career. And he was looking at this car and he didn't know if he could afford it. And my dad just said, "Do you want the car?" And my cousin said, "Yes." And he said, "But I don't know if I can afford it." And then my dad just said, "Man, just make more money." And then he walked off. It was a drop the mic moment before that was a hashtag. And I know it was about a car, a material thing, whatever. However, what got me was just how simple he saw it. And also not simple as in easy simple, but simple as in like money's kind of not a big deal. But I recognize its use, right? And I can just go out and make more, like just like that. Not that it doesn't require effort or doesn't require smarts or follow through or execution, but just that this dude, who, and I'm lucky because he was my dad, happened to think that, yeah, just go make more of it. Keep it moving, man.
I couldn't agree more, especially what a time it is to be alive that we live in right now. With the internet and technology, there has never been a lower cost of entry to starting a business or to finding profits or money in some way, shape, or form. I mean, never. It used to be actually a real thing to think, gosh, I don't ever know how I could own my own business because I have to own an actual storefront and have a loan and have some sort of real estate or have an inventory. You don't need any of that. I mean, I talk a lot about how I go around a lot to colleges. And I was just at NYU speaking to a bunch of students there, and I kind of was yelling at them in the sweetest way possible. Yeah, they're. But my goal was like, if you're in college right now, or if you don't have limits on what you can say from a corporation or your job, like, why do you not have a website where you start to become an expert in something, start to mess around with systems, see if you can sell something online, see if you can brand yourself as an expert? There are a million ways to do it for literally nothing, free, and you can start making money on the side right now. You could even just go to garage sales and look at what's out there, buy it for 50 cents on the dollar and go and resell it on eBay or Amazon. I mean, you could be an Uber driver on the side. There's so many ways to make money. It's astounding. So what I struggle with, Jason, is having empathy for the college grads who have like a certain socioeconomic level that are like, I can't get a job. Like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, there's so many jobs that I would love to explore right now, because I think you can make money in just about anything if you just ask yourself this question instead of, when somebody says something like I said, controversial, which is anybody could be able to make money in this day and age in the US, instead of saying like, oh, not me, I've got this and this, no way could I, just say, how could it work for me? If I just open my mindset and think, how could this work for me? What would happen? I think if that mindset shifted, huge things would happen for our society and anybody listening.
You walked into NYU and gave those students a lashing, and you made it. I'm guessing. From what I hear nowadays, as long as you wear a safety pin, then you're okay.
Yes.
There's a lot of whining going on. I'm actually okay with a pity party. I am a psychologist by trade. I'm okay with a pity party, but I think it's, let's give yourself 15 minutes, maybe 20 if it's a big one, and then after that, suck it up, pull your pants up, or whatever it is that you want to pull up, and get to work doing what you do. There's almost like this undercurrent of anger, I guess. And I don't know where that's coming from. Kind of like maybe people are owed this, and again, I think it goes back to, you said it, I can't get a job, I won't get hired. Getting a job is different than it used to be. Yes, you can work at a Target, you can work at a retail location, you can work for a company. Yes, however, the way the world is moving with the internet and all of that, the .coms and the startups and the tech and just the ways we can provide value for others, I think it's moving so fast that getting a job is just it's kind of a moot point. It's not about getting a job, it's kind of about having a job, which is different, right? Because getting a job is saying, I'm going to give someone else the power to validate my school, my work, my classes I took, my resume, and then they'll give me a shot and put me in a seat, and I'll sit in front of a computer doing something, which is called my job. Versus focusing maybe on the business of your life, focusing on that curiosity thing, that thing that you really find interesting, and then finding a way to make that valuable, to bring that value to somebody else. Because chances are good that if you're interested in it, there's probably a few other people who might be as well and are wondering about it, whatever it is. We can call it a widget. I went to business school. We used to love widgets. So,
oh gosh, I've heard that word a while.
So yeah, I'm dating myself.
No.
And which was actually my problem with business school, was I felt like I was being taught to work for somebody else. I'm like, wait, I'm getting an MBA and you're teaching me how to work for somebody else? And the truth was, yes, we're teaching you how to work for someone else. And now, granted, this was 2000, not nowadays, because I think they do have more leadership and entrepreneurial types of curriculum. But I think there's just this underswell of I don't want to say anger, but maybe this feeling of powerlessness. You mentioned victimhood. Anyone can be victimized, but that doesn't mean you have to be the victim.
Certainly, it's an absolute mindset. And don't get me wrong, there are many times where I have a pity party myself, or where things happen that, make me have a tough day. As a woman, you always worried about, I always worry about, crying in front of my boss when something difficult happens. I remember back in the day, or, just not being able to go through another compliance review or attorney conference call. Yes, there are difficult things every day, or losing a really big deal. But I think if I try to start each day thinking about the end, to be honest, I think it's really, really impactful if you can think about the one thing that we all know for sure in life. And there's only one thing, in my opinion, that we know for sure, and that is that we will die. Every single one of us will eventually take our last breath, our eyes will close, and there will be a funeral, maybe a casket, you'll be in it. And if you visualize this really powerful moment of the end of your life, what menial thing that happens during the day could compare with the fact that that eventually you will die? And so why not spend your life in the positive, assuming the positive, and going after the things that you want? Because we only have 8,700 hours or something like that on average on Earth. So to spend 9 to 5 every day for 40 years focused upon something that doesn't fuel us just doesn't make sense to me.
Hear, hear. Ladies and gentlemen, Codie Sanchez just went deep on the gold medal mindset. Man. Okay.
But it's powerful.
It is.
It really is. I mean, if you can spend every day, and I talk about this a lot, and think about how, people will say to me, Codie, how do you only sleep 6 hours a day? And I didn't used to be like this. I used to need 10 hours, and then I'd be tired by 5, and the gym, it just wasn't happening. And then some mind shift happened for me. And for me, it was thinking about my why, not what I'm doing every day on Earth, not, what I do like an attorney, an investor, or whatever, but why do I wake up in the morning? What gets me out of bed? Why do I believe I was placed here? And for me, that is that I believe that we were all placed on Earth with a singular, unique talent that only we can do in this way. And we're meant to spend our lives in the pursuit of it and spend our lives sharing it with others. So my why is helping more people see that, and alleviating this idea of 80% of our population actually disliking, if not hating, what they do for a living. So that's my why. And when you have something like that powerful, then, and you keep the end in mind, which is that we all end, below ground, then living a meaningful life is the only option. There's no way you're going to sit in a job that you don't like, or just shuffle through life with that. Or like you talked about, eat bad food or not be profitable, because you have this thing that drives you that most people don't think about.
I think people do have this kind of intrinsic awareness of that clock, that the clock is ticking. Obviously, as you age, you might become more aware of it than most. But I think we all know the end is near, and it's interesting working with athletes because I feel like they go through that lifespan in a much quicker time period, maybe 5 years or 10 years, where you're literally old at 30. In some sports,
yeah, that's astounding.
Most sports, gymnastics, geez, you're probably old at 22 or 23 or whenever you grow too tall. But my point is, if we do search, and probably not even that hard, but if we search deep enough, we're aware that the end is coming. So what happens is people get scared, and it's fear. And I think most of our decisions, even from when we're kids, are based out of fear. As soon as you leave the house, your parents say, "Be careful," right?
That's true.
Right? When you cross the street, it's look both ways. So it's not even necessarily, and I'm not saying it's bad. Of course, we want our parents to care for us and to say, "Be careful." They want to see you come home. But I think what that does on a subconscious level is it builds in this kind of watching your back mentality versus shoulders back, chest out, cape on. Let's let's see what the future brings mentality. And we like our safety, we like our comfort, we like our meatloaf, so to speak. So that's the piece that I think that people are scared to give up, even though they know the end is coming. And so when you have those two, I guess, pressures or perceived pressures wearing on you, whether you're conscious of it or not, I think that's when we start to do things we may not, quote unquote, want to do, or feel like we can't do the things we want to do.
I've never thought about it that way, but it's a beautiful point. I think I was relatively lucky because my parents, one thing that I don't have children, but if or when we do, I thought this was so powerful. We would always sit around the dinner table and we're Latinos, so we're like loud and everybody's arguing, but it's this like beautiful, crazy Italian type of family because we're Spaniards. Mm-hmm. And but the thing that I recall the most is every day it wasn't like, how was your day, honey? It was, what did you learn today?
Oh, wow.
What new came across your plate that you didn't know before today? And so we would expand upon that. Or it would be, what happened today that surprised you? Or it would be, what did you do to be a good person today? How did you give? And it wasn't like, we're not professors. It wasn't like this uptight environment. It was very much just this curious conversation. What did you learn? What did you give? What did you do today? And so if you came home and you didn't really have one of those to share, you kind of got ragged on a little bit. And I think that always, I revert to that, and I try to do it even with my husband, who probably thinks I'm nuts. But every day, just asking ourselves those questions, like, what if every day we kind of touched another human in a really impactful way? And that could just mean like a text to somebody we haven't talked to in a long time saying we love them. Or it could be, what if we actively strive to learn one thing new a day? Then it doesn't become so scary to make changes because you've got this little scientist hat on, and you realize that it's all an experiment. And how many times did Edison fail before he finally had his light bulb moment? And that, again, if you could put those little tiny daily practices in place, not just listen to this podcast and think, oh, this is interesting, inspirational, but no, take this one thing, apply it every day. Then once you've done it for, what do they say, 27 days on average to determine a habit, then you add another little one thing each day. And then you build upon it, and before you realize it, you are systematized to stretch and learn and grow, and magic happens.
Nice. And yes, so 7 days to create a neurod, 30 days for that to become solidified, that connection, and then 90 days for that to become a more predominant way of travel via neurological.
What is the neurod?
I know. A neurological connection. So you don't know a different language at all. You're thrown into Russia. You've been there for a week, and you will have created a new connection in your brain after that 7 days, having learned, whatever words you could have picked up in that time frame. If you're there for 30, you obviously would know more language, but that connection about 30 days will be there forever. Whether it's used or not, who knows? And then after 90 days, it will become stronger and more solidified and somewhat more of a predominant way of travel.
And here I thought I got it all after 27 days. You know what? Charles from The Power of Habit. I can't remember his last name. I'm going to need a refund.
He's right. He's right. So 30 is the magic number. 30 is more sellable for sure, because you say 90 days and people are like, I don't know if I have 90 days. But there was something to P90X, and it wasn't necessarily because of the fitness. It was because you actually got up and did something for that 90 days. There you go.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, have you used I use this app called Way of Life app. I really should be like a spokesperson for these apps.
Yeah, you're good. I'm writing notes right now.
I do a weekly newsletter, and it's just because I'm super curious. I like to curate all these different things to make life easier. And so I keep going back and putting Way of Life on there because I know people aren't listening and downloading it, but it's free. And it's this amazing little app that essentially allows you to track your daily habits. And you just like press red or press green, red if you didn't do it, green if you did. But it has like these beautiful, really easy to view trend charts. So you can have a pie graph, or you can have a bar chart kind of showing where your trends are on each activity that you have, and then what they are overall. And you can make little notes to yourself. But it's such a cool way to hold yourself accountable. You can set reminders if you want, but I just kind of go in there each evening and see. I think there's a sad but also amazing thing that we all have where we can convince ourselves of almost anything.
Of course.
So I say to myself, oh yeah, I've worked out every day for the past 3 months, no problem. And then I go and look at my app and I'm like, 82% of the time, so it just holds you accountable in a way that's super easy.
I like the accountability. The tracking is a bit interesting for me. I'm learning that personally, because I've always been more of a free flowing kind of dude, and I always, so that's a system that I'm evolving into, is learning to track better. But definitely the accountability I love, and so one trick I do to hold myself accountability is I'll tell people, and not anyone, but close people, close friends or family, something I'm doing with an end date, or some kind of number, or some kind of fixed point to where it's, somewhat measurable or trackable. But the reason why I tell people is because I'm a person of my word. And so if I say something, it's one thing for me to say it to myself, but, me holding myself accountable, I'm pretty good at that. I did finish school. I did get a couple. I do pay my bills on time. But me holding myself accountable, especially with bigger and brighter things, like you said, it's always easy to kind of justify why you did or didn't do something. So when I tell somebody else that, yes, I'm writing a book, my plan is to finish by December, well, I don't want to look like a liar. I mean,
exactly.
I'm a bit vain in that matter, but if I'm going to be vain, I might as well harness that and use it for something positive versus, how do I look in these jeans?
Sure. Well, I think, there's a lot of science to the fact of social pressure, right? Which is what you're talking about. So I think anytime, and that's why there's so many weight loss groups and workout groups. It's not necessarily because you work out better when there's other people. It's because if other people can hold you accountable, you have a higher likelihood of actually achieving something. And the same thing, I think, with tracking. What gets measured gets managed. So it's very difficult to tell your progress in anything if you don't know where you started and how incrementally you've grown and what's worked and what doesn't. So I'm with you. I think social pressure is amazing, and I'm interested to hear what happens when you start applying the measurement or the tracking on a micro scale and then looking at the macro trends. What changes for you? It really changed a lot for me.
I'm going to let you know. I'll be a guest on your podcast, and we could pull out all my tracking mechanisms. I don't have that many.
Deal. But I also want to learn how to ride a motorcycle, so that's our trade-off.
I'm okay with motorcycles, but bicycles are my thing. I prefer.
Oh, I thought you did. Oh, you did. I gotcha. I thought you were motorized bicycles, but regular bicycles.
I pedal. Yeah, so the bicycle. Yeah,
you pedal.
The bicycle. Yes, I pedal.
So you got to work at it. No, I was into the motor kind of.
So oddly enough, because I can't let the motocross people, because I do know a lot of motocross people, the people who race motorcycles. The people who race motorcycles on dirt are arguably the most fittest athletes out there. It is probably the most physically demanding sport in the world, and nobody knows it or gives them credit for it because they have a motor.
Interesting.
I know. It's really interesting, but I've kind of been in that world a little bit and talked with some of those athletes, and I love the way they look at things, and it's so interesting how their talent, just that racing and hitting things fast at speed and the braking and the cornering. I'm going to bring this around eventually, but it's interesting how successful they tend to be at other things, because I think they take that brave approach to other areas of their life and their business and things of that nature. And so they have this approach of, I'm going for it, I'm hitting it. As a racer, you're always looking for an edge. And so I think there isn't so much of a watch your back mentality, because it's inherent in the sport that it is dangerous. So that's kind of, all right, my mortality might be like, tonight might be my last breath. And so
Wow.
so they're not gonna say okay with it, but they're probably more okay with it than most. And so there's nothing left but to send it. Literally, it's amazing how much of that applies to just getting the job or creating your job or finding the investors or creating your niche. All of that stuff is just learning to push forward and ramp up, take that leap, and trust your own power and your ability, whatever it may be.
I would actually love to be able to hire more athletes. I don't know where you find them in particular, but there's something about, well, one, the team-based mentality, and then just that competitive, unrelenting feeling. And they understand the reps, so what it takes to get really good at something. So I think, it's kind of like veterans. I wish that I could find and hire more easily. I'm always looking for, in my one business, Spanish speaking, either one of those. So if you're listening,
well,
me.
I tell you what, you might want to touch base with me online, because I can go deep with the athletes too, and surprisingly enough, there's some lazy ones out there too. So I can help you spot the lazy ones.
Sounds good. Yeah, especially as a psychologist. That's the other thing that you have going for you there. Can tell me what behavioral traits to look out for.
That's another thing that people don't realize is that because we were talking about money, we talked about a lot of stuff, but we talked about money and success, and obviously money is not just, it is but one measure of success. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the other mistake people make, is they think because they're not making X that they may not feel successful, when in fact they might be more successful than the person making more money than them. However, walking through your life as if you're not successful affects you in ways that are almost immeasurable, because of what you're attracting, what you're deflecting, what you're not seeing, because of this mindset that you have.
What's interesting is when you do start achieving a lot of success monetarily, and you get the faster things and the bigger things and the shinier objects, what you find then is that you were striving for all of these things that rappers talk about all the time. And so you yourself are kind of in the rap video now, and you realize that they don't actually fill that little hole inside of you, and happiness they do not bring. And so it's cool to achieve it. Don't get me wrong. I like nice cars and nice things, but it is not success. And most people that I know who have achieved a high level of financial success get there and then think, I thought this was the pinnacle. I thought this would make me happy. And if their life isn't aligned to their why and their purpose, then they realize that the profitability portion maybe wasn't something they should have spent the last 40 years upon. And that's also a different type of scary. So I'm with you. I think that you should absolutely be paid for what you do, and you should strive for profitability, because that is how you get sustainability. However, you got to make sure that you're actually playing the game that you want to play, that you want to get rewarded in first.
Right. Because the money could come just because of the marketplace, right? I mean, you might not even be that good at something. Even the crappiest, even the crappiest Major League Baseball player is getting paid a lot of money. I mean, so it's not, which brings me back to you can be a lazy athlete. You can actually be not that hard of a worker, but just because you're that talented, you happen to be that dude that's on the bench or might even be playing. But the sad part is you're not realizing your potential, which it sounds a bit trite, but I can say that because I used to be a lazy athlete, and life I did straight up. I was a lazy athlete, and it took me getting married, and I had my best years after I was 30 when I probably had my best year, which kind of flew against the face of everything, but that came with the hard work and accepting my athleticism and taking it more personally actually than I used to. So takes one to know one.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, and I think you see it in business just as frequently. You see people that are really good at some sort of business, but if it also doesn't feed their soul, then kind of what's the point when again you're looking back at your entire life and guess what, you don't get to take any of it with you. So I think you want to spend, and the cool thing is, like the uplifting part is, I haven't found something yet that you can't make money in. Like literally, sometimes the most successful people I've met, they make their money in the weirdest ways, like a family-owned sprinkler business,
Mm-hmm.
or, I know a chick that paints like crazy pop art, and she's, making millions. And I know another one that like does a rock crystal Zen garden thing and makes a killing off of it. So, I mean, literally, whatever you want to do, there's a way to monetize it. So, what's the downside about making money in something that you like if you can make money in almost any pursuit?
Exactly. And that goes back to the guilt. Whoa, wait, I got to stop. I got to pump the brakes. I'm enjoying this too much. I got to actually show up in a dismal in an office with what is that lighting? That lighting that just sucks the DNA right out of you.
Oh,
That
yeah.
fluorescent lighting
There you go.
and yeah, cuz now that's the proper way to make money. It's like, I don't know if it's the proper way. It's a way, but I don't know if
Yeah.
it's something that's really going to add to your life. And so
You know what I really struggle with is this 9 to 5 contract that we have all agreed to in the US. And you got me thinking about this because of the fluorescent lights, and I immediately think those like padded cubicle walls, and that you have to be there for this set amount of time. And I was writing about this the other day because I was reading a bunch of research surrounding the amazing amount of time that we waste at work actually not working, and between emails and unnecessary meetings and like office chat interruptions. I mean, like 60% of our day, they say on average in a work environment is spent like switching between tasks because we have to refocus, spent in unnecessary meetings, responding to unnecessary emails, and basically doing like a bunch of stuff unnecessarily. And so for me, I have this really big issue with that somebody needs to be there from X amount of time to X amount of time, as opposed to like somebody is getting paid to do something, not be like a junior account, sit at your desk executive.
it's the weirdest thing. I had one job, a traditional kind of office-y thing, and there would be work on my desk, and I would finish it, and then I'd be waiting around. Like I didn't know, because I didn't have the authority to just go to do things that I thought should be done. I mean, I could send it up the chain and ask, and then wait, and then if I wrote some copy for this, or I made my I did my work, and so I'm just waiting for someone else in that chain to kind of say yes, no, maybe, and I'm like, well, you're paying me to sit here and pretend I'm working, and then I was looking around the office, I'm thinking, hey, I can't be the only one that this is, so I can't be the only one that's doing this. So I was just thinking, man, how much is it? How many of us are just sitting here acting like we're working versus actually working? I'm waiting for that workplace shift to happen to where, we can come across those bosses that just say, well, I don't have to be here all day. I choose to be. You can choose to work here or not, and you can choose to do the work the way you want or not, and your results will show, and you being employed here, you will either be employed here or not based on those results. But I think
Sure.
those are big boy discussions, big boy and big girl discussions, and I'm sure, and then we're cutting into that safety thing and that control thing, and that's where people, and I'm say people, myself included, we all can tend to want to be safe and be cared for and know that our bills are going to be paid XYZ 1 2 3, and I think it's shoulders back, chest out, put on the cape versus watching our back, and
Sure.
that's where we're at.
Well, I think, there's little mini experiments you can do with it. Like, I remember when I started thinking about this concept, probably like a lot of us who are entrepreneurs, was when I read 4 Hour Work Week. And it's one of my favorite books. And it's a little radical because not everybody wants to be in Thailand sitting on a beach, with flip-flops running an online business. So I think there's ways to take the radical ideas and apply them to corporate sphere. And like some of the ways that I did that when I was I wasn't leading the group or the firm, but I was a member of it, were very small. Like one of my favorite ones is like, I don't answer my phone, like really ever. I I almost always listen to voicemail and then decide if I want to get back to it. And I had like a weaning in process. And like one of the first things I started with was like, I don't know, do you ever get an email from somebody that's like, hey, can you call me? You're like, why?
I can't stand those. I can't
Right?
stand those, or those messages. Hey, Jason, got a question. Call me back. Ask
Call me back, right?
the question.
So exactly. Like, let's save everybody a lot of time. And so I would just get really systematic about how to respond to that. So instead of calling the person back, I would say, oh, shoot, stuck on a conference call. And I'm like, in back-to-back ones today. I so want to make sure I get back to you. What is it that you need? How can I help you out, man? And like make it soft and in your voice, and never tell anybody that you're doing this practice. Just keep it inside. But I would just do that. And so lo and behold, the guy would be like, oh, hey, what happened on this account? Did we close the deal? And you're like, no, period, send, right? And so I just started doing that. That was my one little tiny snowball starting to roll downhill. And then next it was these conference calls that I didn't need to be on, I felt. And so anytime I think you have a decision between making a really broad proclamation, like I will no longer be on conference calls, or a small proclamation of, shoot, Tuesdays at that time, my one client likes to interact with me, or, today I can't because of this. Like, start just removing yourself from the equations in small steps. And what you'll find is as you start doing those small steps, the bigger ones get easier. And if you can create this space for doing things that make you a more interesting, better human every day, like reading online, doing podcasts, starting a side business during your lunch hour, you're going to be like, people will start asking you, like, how do you get it all done? And you get it done by not doing unnecessary crap.
Boom. Just handle it. So with that said, I have some questions. And I'm not gonna ask all of them because we are running out of time, and I'm mindful of your time. And I'm actually very pleased that you're actually on the line with me, because you could have because I know because you could have just not responded. Jason, what's the question? No. Period. Okay. But I'm going to ask you this one question, which I think because we covered a lot of this stuff. And you know what? I like to have reasons to have people come back as well. So I'm learning not to ask all my questions.
I dig it.
But what's one thing you wish every human knew?
Such a good question.
Well, coming off of the NYU talk, coming off of these great pearls you've left our listeners already, I feel like that was the question that needed to be asked.
Yeah, I mean, I really, truly wish that every human knew what I believe to be the truth, which is that you were uniquely placed on this planet to share a skill that only you have. And that if you do, in fact, share this skill with the world, amazing things will happen. And if you can just take that little belief that you have something worthy of sharing and expand upon it in your life, I think amazing things are going to happen, because what I've found is that all of us have a skill that matches the needs of others. And when you can, it's old school supply and demand in a weird way, but when you can show that your skill matches what somebody else needs, not only will you find purpose, fulfillment, and passion, you will also find profitability.
Wow. All right. Well, with that said, how can people find you? Where would you like them to find you? And why would you like them to find you?
Sure. I think, I'm pretty active on social media. They can find me on Instagram at Codie Sanchez, and that's Codie Sanchez, Sanchez. My website is the same name, so CodieSanchez.com, and the same on Twitter and Facebook. And, I think here's what I would leave people with is there are a million people out there telling you how to build businesses and lives and careers that you want. And so maybe it's not me, and I don't jive with you, and I'm not the type of, coach or whatever. I don't really do one-on-one coaching, but, I always answer questions and I answer all my emails. But what I would say is that you need to question everything, including me, maybe especially me. But there are too many gurus or self-help experts or whatever, business builders, that haven't actually built businesses and haven't actually created lives that should be mimicked. And so I am on a mission to get rid of the voices that are out there to monetize the fact that our education system is flawed, in my opinion, and that we aren't taught how to self-reflect and find what fuels us and turn us into profits. So I think if you like kind of edgy, actionable ways to find your passion and purpose and turns it into profits, then I might be your girl. But if you don't like, 4-letter words frequently and me kind of giving you a really specific outline, then there's probably somebody else out there for you. Just double check that they've actually done something worthwhile and that the steps that they give you are real. Because what you don't want to do is put in the work and have the desire, which is so priceless, and then spend it in steps that are wasteful and not actually the easiest path to get there.
Oh, I love that one. It was so hard for me to be quiet when you were talking. It really was. No, because for me, that's the same thing. I'm not. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it kills me. It kills me. I could go on a tirade about sports psychologists. I can go on a tirade about the licensing board. I can go. Yeah, there are a lot of people out there who they have not been in the trenches. But they did master, say, a really, how to build an email list and get you in their funnel.
Exactly.
And that's it. And it's like, dude, but other than that, where's the meat there? Where's the what have you done? Other than that, yep. I mean, and great, make money on how to build an email list and get people in a funnel. That cool. If that's your, but don't make it seem like you're this business expert, when that isn't necessarily the case. So
yeah, and I think look for actionable steps, right? I mean, that's the other thing. There's too many people out there that are like, if you feel it, it will manifest. Mm-hmm. Okay, I do believe you have to have a positive attitude, but you also got to hustle. So I get a little iffy with just the universe is going to provide all of this for you. Sure, believe that, but back it up with action and find people that have a plan you can follow.
Yeah. Well, the universe generally does provide for you when you are providing to the universe.
You got it.
So, which I think means the work, the effort, the hustle, all of the above. So that's the deal. Game recognizes game, like Snoop Dogg says.
I love it. I dig. Well, I'm a West Coast chick, so I can feel your vibe there, even though I'm sitting in Texas.
Well, Ms. Codie Sanchez, thank you so very much for being a guest. If that invitation is still good for me, I'd love to be a guest on your show. We will keep in touch, and it is much appreciated. I'm sure my listeners will have a lot to sink their teeth into after this episode. Thank you so much.
I'm so glad. Thank you for having me, and count on it.
Thanks for taking the time to mine for gold on the Gold Medal Mindset podcast. Let's keep the conversation going on Twitter at RealDrJRich or on the web at drjasonrichardson.com. That's drjasonrichardson.com. Take care and have a great day.